Chapter 1. Why Moses is one of the most important people in the Bible. Moses is one of the greatest leaders in the Bible. He was chosen by God to lead the people of Israel out of slavery in Egypt. Moses was not perfect, but he had a strong faith in God. He spoke with God many times and received the 10 Commandments. He wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, also known as the Torah or Pentateuch. These books are important for Jews, Christians, and even for history. Through Moses, God showed his power with many miracles. Moses also taught the people how to worship and live a good life. His life was full of challenges, but he never gave up. He trusted in God even when things were hard. In this video, we will follow the life of Moses from his birth to his final days. Let's begin the journey. Chapter 2. A baby in a basket. Moses was born in Egypt during a dangerous time. The Pharaoh was afraid of the Hebrew people. He saw that they were growing in number and strength. So, he gave a terrible command. Every Hebrew baby boy must be killed at birth. But Moses' parents believed in God. They wanted to protect their child. So they hid Moses for 3 months. They kept him safe and quiet in their small home. After some time, it became too dangerous to hide him. So his mother made a small basket from reeds. She covered it with tar so it would not sink in water. Then, with a heavy heart, she placed baby Moses in the basket and put it among the tall grass by the Nile River. His sister, Miriam, watched from a distance. She wanted to see what would happen to her little brother. Soon, the Pharaoh's daughter came to the river to bathe. She saw the basket and sent one of her servants to get it. When she opened it, she saw the baby crying. She felt sorry for him and said, "This must be one of the Hebrew babies." Then Miriam came forward and said, "Shall I go and find a Hebrew woman to take care of the baby for you?" The princess agreed, and Miriam went to call her own mother. So, the mother of Moses was paid to care for her own son. When he grew older, the princess adopted him as her son and gave him the name Moses, which means drawn out of the water. From that moment, Moses' life would never be the same. He was raised as a prince in the house of Pharaoh. But God had a bigger plan for him. Chapter 3. Moses grows up in Pharaoh's palace. Moses grew up in the royal palace of Egypt. He wore fine clothes, ate rich food, and learned from the best teachers. He studied science, math, writing, and leadership. He was treated like a prince, the son of Pharaoh's daughter. But deep inside, Moses knew he was not Egyptian. He knew he was a Hebrew, one of the people who lived as slaves. He saw how his people were forced to work hard and were beaten by guards. It made him sad and angry. One day, Moses walked among the Hebrew slaves. He saw an Egyptian man beating a Hebrew worker. Moses looked around. No one was watching. He became so angry that he killed the Egyptian and hid the body in the sand. The next day, Moses tried to stop a fight between 2 Hebrews. But one of them said, "Who made you our ruler? Are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was shocked. People knew what he had done. He became afraid and realized his life was in danger. When Pharaoh heard the news, he wanted to kill Moses. So Moses ran away from Egypt. He left behind his life of comfort and power. He escaped into the desert, not knowing where he would go next. This was the beginning of a new chapter in Moses' life, one that would shape him into the man God would one day use to set his people free. Chapter 4. Running away to Midian. Moses traveled far into the desert. The sun was hot, and the journey was long. He was tired, hungry, and alone. After many days, he reached a land called Midian. In Midian, Moses sat down by a well to rest. Soon, 7 sisters came to the well to get water for their father's sheep. But some shepherds came and tried to drive them away. Moses stood up and helped the women. He defended them and gave water to their animals. When the sisters returned home, they told their father, Reuel, also called Jethro, about Moses. He invited Moses to stay with them. Moses agreed and soon became part of the family. Later, he married one of the daughters, Zipporah, and started a new life. Moses lived in Midian for many years. He became a shepherd and took care of sheep in the quiet hills. He had a simple life very different from Egypt. But during this time, God was preparing him for something much greater. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the people of Israel were still suffering. They cried out to God for help, and God heard their prayers. Moses didn't know it yet, but his peaceful days as a shepherd were about to end. God had a mission for him, a mission that would change the world. Chapter 5. The Burning Bush. One day, Moses was taking care of the sheep near Mount Horeb, also known as the Mountain of God. As he walked through the area, something strange caught his eye. He saw a bush that was on fire, but the fire did not burn it up. Moses went closer to see what was happening. Then he heard a voice calling from the bush. "Moses, Moses." He answered, "Here I am." The voice said, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy ground." It was the voice of God. God told Moses, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Moses was afraid. He covered his face and listened. God said, "I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries. Now I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt." Moses was shocked. He said, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel?" God answered, "I will be with you." Moses asked, "What if the people ask me your name? What should I say?" God said, "I am who I am. Tell them I am has sent you." God also gave Moses signs to show the people, like turning his staff into a snake and making his hand diseased and healed again. Still, Moses was afraid. He said, "But I am not a good speaker." God replied, "I will help you speak. I will teach you what to say." Moses still didn't feel ready, so God said, "Your brother Aaron will go with you. He will speak to the people and you will show them the signs." Then Moses accepted the mission. He returned home, said goodbye to his family, and began the long journey back to Egypt to face Pharaoh and free God's people. Chapter 6. Let my people go. Moses and his brother Aaron went to Egypt, just as God had commanded. They stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, in his great palace. Moses spoke boldly. "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so they may worship me in the desert." But Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord, that I should obey him? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Instead of showing mercy, Pharaoh became even more cruel. He made the Hebrew slaves work harder. He told his overseers, "Do not give them straw for making bricks. Let them find it themselves, but still demand the same number of bricks." The people of Israel were angry with Moses. They said, "You have made things worse for us." Moses cried out to God, "Lord, why did you send me? Pharaoh has not listened, and your people are suffering more." But God said, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. I will stretch out my hand and show my power. Then he will let my people go." God told Moses and Aaron to return to Pharaoh. He gave them the words to say and miracles to perform. Still, Pharaoh's heart was hard. To show his power, God began to send plagues upon Egypt. Each time Pharaoh refused, a new plague came. First, the Nile River turned into blood. Then came frogs, gnats, and flies. Animals became sick and died. People were covered with painful sores. Hail fell from the sky and destroyed crops. Locusts ate everything that remained. Darkness covered the land for 3 days. But even after all these signs, Pharaoh still said no. God was preparing for one final plague, the most serious of all. It would change everything. Chapter 7. The 10 Plagues of Egypt. God had warned Pharaoh many times, but Pharaoh's heart remained hard. He refused to listen and would not let the people of Israel go. So God sent 10 powerful plagues to show his power and force Pharaoh to obey. The first plague turned the Nile River into blood. All the fish died, and the waters smelled terrible. People could not drink from the river. Next came frogs. They came into houses, beds, kitchens, everywhere. When Pharaoh begged for the frogs to go away, God stopped the plague. But Pharaoh still said no. Then God sent gnats, tiny insects that covered people and animals. After that came flies, thick swarms that filled the land. Yet Pharaoh would not change his mind. The 5th plague brought death to the Egyptians' animals. Their horses, cows, and sheep died, but not one of the Israelites' animals was harmed. Next, painful boils broke out on the skin of the Egyptians. Then a storm of hail fell from the sky, destroying crops and killing animals. After the hail came locusts, insects that covered the land and ate every green plant. Egypt was ruined, but Pharaoh still refused. Then came the 9th plague, darkness. For 3 days, no one could see anything, but the land where the Israelites lived had light. Each plague showed that the God of Israel was greater than all the gods of Egypt. But Pharaoh's heart was still stubborn. God told Moses, "I will bring one more plague. After this, Pharaoh will let you go." It would be the most serious and painful of all, the death of the firstborn. This final plague would bring sorrow to every Egyptian home. But for the people of Israel, God had a special plan of protection. A plan called Passover. Chapter 8. The first Passover and the 10th plague. God spoke to Moses and gave him special instructions to protect the people of Israel. He said that each Hebrew family must take a perfect lamb, 1 year old, without any defect. They were to kill the lamb and put some of its blood on the doorposts of their houses. Then they would roast the meat and eat it with bitter herbs and flat bread. They had to eat quickly, dressed, and ready to leave Egypt. This special meal was called the Passover, because that night God would pass through the land of Egypt. God said, "When I see the blood on your doors, I will pass over your house. No death will touch you." That night, just as God said, the final plague came. The firstborn of every Egyptian family died. From the house of Pharaoh to the smallest servant, even the firstborn of animals died. But in the homes of the Israelites, no one was harmed. The blood on the doorposts protected them. There was great crying in Egypt. Pharaoh finally gave up. He called for Moses and Aaron during the night and said, "Go, take your people and leave Egypt. Take your animals. Worship your God." The people of Israel had been slaves for 400 years. Now they were free. They left Egypt in a great group, men, women, children, and animals. Many Egyptians gave them gold, silver, and clothes for their journey. From that day on, the Israelites would remember Passover every year. It was the night when God saved his people and set them free. But Pharaoh's story wasn't finished yet. Soon, he would change his mind again and chase after them with his army. Chapter 9. Crossing the Red Sea. The people of Israel left Egypt with joy and hope. They followed Moses into the desert, carrying what they could. God led them with a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. This showed them the way and reminded them that he was with them. But soon, Pharaoh changed his mind. He thought, "Why did I let the Israelites go? We have lost our slaves." So he gathered his army, his chariots, and his best soldiers. They chased after the Israelites. When the people saw Pharaoh's army coming, they were afraid. In front of them was the Red Sea. Behind them was the Egyptian army. They thought they were trapped. The people cried out to Moses, "Why did you bring us here to die? It would have been better to stay in Egypt as slaves." Moses told them, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the Lord's salvation." God spoke to Moses, "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea." Moses obeyed. Then a strong wind began to blow, and the waters of the Red Sea parted. Walls of water stood on each side, and a dry path appeared in the middle. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. All night they crossed safely to the other side. When Pharaoh's army tried to follow, God told Moses to stretch out his hand again. The waters came back and covered the chariots and soldiers. Not one of them survived. The people of Israel saw what God had done and were filled with awe. They sang songs of praise, thanking God for saving them from Pharaoh's hand. From that day, they knew that the God who brought them out of Egypt was powerful enough to lead them to the land he had promised. Chapter 10. God gives manna and water in the desert. After crossing the Red Sea, the Israelites traveled into the desert. At first, they were full of joy, but soon they faced new problems. The land was hot and dry, and they began to run out of food and water. The people complained to Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt? We have no bread, no meat, and no water. We will die here." Moses prayed to God, and God answered. He said, "I will provide for my people." The next morning, the ground was covered with something small and white, like frost. The people asked, "What is it?" Moses said, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." They called it manna, which means, "What is it?" It tasted like thin wafers made with honey. God told them to gather only what they needed for each day. On the sixth day, they were to gather enough for 2 days, so they could rest on the Sabbath. Later, when the people were thirsty, they again complained to Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Are you trying to kill us with thirst?" God told Moses, "Take your staff and strike the rock at Mount Horeb." When Moses hit the rock, water flowed out, and the people drank until they were satisfied. Through manna and water from the rock, God showed his people that he could provide for them in the desert. He wanted them to trust him, no matter the circumstances. But even after these miracles, the Israelites often forgot God's power and complained again and again. Chapter 11. The 10 Commandments. After many weeks of traveling through the desert, the Israelites came to Mount Sinai. There, God told Moses to come up the mountain to meet him. A thick cloud covered the top of the mountain, and there was thunder, lightning, and the sound of a trumpet. The people trembled in fear. God spoke to Moses and gave him his law. He wanted his people to know how to live in a way that pleased him. At the heart of this law were the 10 Commandments. 1. Do not have other gods besides me. 2. Do not make idols or worship them. 3. Do not misuse the name of the Lord. 4. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 5. Honor your father and mother. 6. Do not murder. 7. Do not commit adultery. 8. Do not steal. 9. Do not lie about others. 10. Do not covet what belongs to your neighbor. God wrote these commandments on 2 stone tablets with his own finger. They were a gift to guide the people in their daily lives. The mountain shook, and smoke rose from it like from a furnace. The people were so afraid that they told Moses, "You speak to us, and we will listen. But do not let God speak to us directly, or we will die." Moses stayed on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, receiving more laws and instructions from God. He also learned how to build the tabernacle, a special tent where God's presence would be among the people. The 10 Commandments became the foundation of God's covenant with Israel, a sign that they were His chosen people, called to live differently from the nations around them. Chapter 12, The Golden Calf. While Moses was on Mount Sinai for 40 days, the people of Israel began to grow impatient. They looked up at the mountain and wondered if Moses would ever return. Without their leader, they started to lose faith in God. They went to Aaron, Moses' brother, and said, "Make us gods who will lead us. As for Moses, we don't know what has happened to him." Aaron told them to bring their gold earrings. He melted the gold and shaped it into the figure of a calf. The people said, "This is your God, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt." Then they built an altar in front of it and offered sacrifices. They ate, drank, and danced around the golden calf. On the mountain, God told Moses, "Go down, because your people have sinned. They have made an idol and are worshiping it. They are turning away from my commands." Moses came down, carrying the 2 stone tablets. When he saw the calf and the dancing, he burned with anger. He threw the tablets to the ground, breaking them into pieces. Moses took the golden calf, burned it, ground it into powder, and scattered it on the water. He made the Israelites drink it to show them how powerless the idol was. Then Moses confronted Aaron. Aaron tried to excuse himself, saying, "I threw the gold into the fire, and out came this calf." But Moses knew the truth. God's anger was great, and many people were punished that day. Still, Moses prayed and asked God to forgive them. God showed mercy, but He reminded the people that idolatry was a serious sin. The golden calf became a lesson for all time. Even after great miracles, people can quickly turn away from God, but His mercy is ready for those who repent. Chapter 13, The Tabernacle, a Holy Place. After the sin of the golden calf, God still wanted to live among His people, but they needed to worship Him in the right way. So God gave Moses detailed instructions for building a special tent, called the Tabernacle. The Tabernacle would be the center of Israel's worship. It was a place where God's presence would dwell, and where sacrifices would be offered for the sins of the people. God told Moses exactly how it should be made, the size, the materials, and every decoration. The people brought gold, silver, bronze, fine linen, and special stones. Skilled workers, filled with the Spirit of God, crafted each part with great care. Inside the tabernacle, there were 2 main rooms. The first was the holy place, which contained the table for the bread of the presence, a golden lampstand, and an altar for burning incense. The second room was the most holy place, separated by a thick curtain. Inside it was the Ark of the Covenant, a gold-covered chest that held the 10 Commandments, a jar of manna, and Aaron's staff that had budded. Above the ark were 2 golden cherubim with wings outstretched, and between them was the mercy seat, the place where God's presence would appear. When the tabernacle was finished, a cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord filled the place. From then on, whenever the cloud lifted, the Israelites would set out on their journey. When it stayed, they would remain where they were. The tabernacle reminded the people that God was with them, guiding, protecting, and forgiving them when they sinned. Chapter 14, God gives more laws to Moses. While the Israelites camped near Mount Sinai, God gave Moses more instructions for the people. These laws were not just about worship. They also taught the Israelites how to live together as a holy nation. God gave rules about justice and fairness, how to treat the poor, widows, and orphans, and how to be honest in business. There were also laws about taking care of the land and animals. and about resting on the Sabbath. Some laws explained how to offer sacrifices for different situations, to thank God, to ask for forgiveness, or to dedicate something to Him. God also gave instructions for special feasts: Passover, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Tabernacles, so the people would remember His goodness every year. Through these laws, God showed that He cared about every part of life. He wanted His people to be different from the nations around them. They were to be pure, kind, and faithful. God also reminded them of His promise: "If you obey my commands, I will bless you and protect you. But if you turn away from me, trouble will come." The laws were not meant to be a burden. They were a guide, showing the people how to live in peace with God and with each other. They were a sign that Israel was His chosen people. Moses faithfully wrote down all the laws and taught them to the Israelites. The people agreed and said, "We will do everything the Lord has commanded." But as the journey continued, it became clear that obedience would not always be easy for them. Chapter 15. Miriam and Aaron speak against Moses. As the Israelites traveled through the desert, tensions sometimes grew among the leaders. One day, Miriam, the sister of Moses, and Aaron, his brother, began to speak against him. They criticized Moses because he had married a woman from Cush, a land far from Israel. But their real complaint was about his leadership. They said, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't He also spoken through us?" God heard their words, and He was not pleased. Moses was a humble man, more humble than anyone else on earth. He had not chosen himself as leader. God had chosen him. Suddenly, the Lord told Moses, Aaron, and Miriam to come to the entrance of the tabernacle. A pillar of cloud came down, and God spoke. He said, "When I speak to prophets, I give them visions and dreams. But with my servant Moses, I speak face to face." Why were you not afraid to speak against him? God's anger burned against Miriam and Aaron. When the cloud lifted, Miriam's skin became white as snow. She had leprosy. Aaron cried out to Moses, "Please, my Lord, do not hold this sin against us." Moses prayed to God, "Please heal her." God answered, "She must stay outside the camp for 7 days, and then she will be brought back." The people waited until Miriam was healed before they continued their journey. It was a lesson for everyone. Speaking against God's chosen leader was serious, and pride could bring trouble to the whole community. Chapter 16. The 12 Spies. After many months in the desert, the Israelites finally reached the edge of the land that God had promised to give them. It was called Canaan, a land said to be rich and fertile. God told Moses to send men to explore the land before the people entered it. Moses chose 12 men, one from each tribe of Israel. Among them were Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim and Caleb from the tribe of Judah. Moses told the men, "Go up into the hill country. See what the land is like, if the people are strong or weak, if the cities have walls or not, and if the land is good for farming. Bring back some of the fruit of the land." The 12 spies explored the land for 40 days. They saw large, strong cities and fields full of crops. They also saw powerful people, even giants who made them feel small. In the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes so big that 2 men had to carry it on a pole between them. They also brought pomegranates and figs. When they returned to the camp, the spies reported, "The land truly flows with milk and honey, and here is its fruit. But the people are strong, and the cities are large and fortified. We even saw giants there." 10 of the spies said, "We cannot attack those people. They are stronger than we are. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." But Caleb spoke up, "We should go up and take the land, for we can certainly do it." Joshua agreed, saying, "The Lord will give it to us." The people, however, listened to the 10 fearful spies. That night they cried and complained, saying, "If only we had died in Egypt. Let's choose a new leader and go back." They forgot the miracles God had done for them. Their fear was greater than their faith. This choice would bring serious consequences to the whole nation. Chapter 17. The people refused to enter the Promised Land. When the Israelites heard the report of the 10 fearful spies, panic spread through the camp. All night long they cried and complained against Moses and Aaron. They said, "If only we had died in Egypt or in this desert. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as slaves. It would be better for us to go back to Egypt." Some even said to one another, "Let's choose a new leader and return to Egypt." When Moses and Aaron heard this, they fell face down before the people, grieving over their lack of faith. Joshua and Caleb, the 2 spies who trusted God, tore their clothes in sorrow. They said, "The land we explored is very good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will bring us into it and give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord. Do not be afraid of the people of the land, for the Lord is with us." But the people would not listen. In fact, they talked about stoning Joshua and Caleb to death. At that moment, the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting. God said to Moses, "How long will these people treat me with contempt? I have shown them my power again and again, yet they refuse to trust me. Because of this, none of the men who saw my miracles in Egypt and in the desert will enter the land I promised. Only Joshua and Caleb will go in." God told them that the whole generation of adults who had left Egypt would wander in the desert for 40 years, 1 year for each day the spies explored the land, until they had all died. Their children would grow up and enter the land instead. The people were shocked and afraid. Some tried to change their minds and go into the land the next day, but it was too late. Without God's blessing, they were defeated by their enemies. From that moment, the Israelites knew that unbelief and disobedience could cost them everything. Chapter 18. Korah's Rebellion. As the Israelites continued their long journey in the desert, a man named Korah, from the tribe of Levi, began to stir up trouble. He gathered 250 respected leaders from the community and came to challenge Moses and Aaron. Korah said, "You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of us, and the Lord is with us. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's people?" Moses was deeply troubled. He fell face down before God and then said to Korah and his followers, "Tomorrow morning the Lord will show who belongs to him and who is truly holy. Each of you must take a censer, put fire and incense in it, and present it before the Lord." The next day, Korah and his men stood with their censers at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The glory of the Lord appeared to the whole assembly. God told Moses and Aaron to step away from the crowd so he could destroy them. But Moses and Aaron fell face down and prayed, "O God, you are the God of all people. Will you be angry with everyone when only one man sins?" Then Moses warned the people, "Move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Do not touch anything that belongs to them, or you will be destroyed because of their sins." The people moved back. Moses said, "If these men die a natural death, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the ground opens its mouth and swallows them alive, then you will know that they have treated the Lord with contempt." As soon as Moses finished speaking, the ground split open under them. It swallowed Korah, Dathan, Abiram, their families, and all their belongings. Then the earth closed over them, and they were gone. Fire also came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who had offered incense. The people were filled with fear. They realized that opposing God's chosen leaders was dangerous and foolish. From that day, the rebellion of Korah became a warning for all generations. God himself chooses his servants, and no one should challenge his authority. Chapter 19. Moses makes a big mistake. The Israelites continued their long journey through the dry and harsh desert. Once again, they faced the familiar problem. There was no water. The people gathered against Moses and Aaron, complaining bitterly. They said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt into this wilderness? We and our animals have no water to drink." Moses and Aaron went to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell face down before the Lord. The glory of the Lord appeared, and God gave Moses clear instructions. "Take your staff, gather the people, and speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water." Moses took the staff, as God commanded, and gathered the people. But he was frustrated and angry with them. He said, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then, instead of speaking to the rock as God had told him, Moses struck it twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the people and animals drank their fill. But God was not pleased. He said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this assembly into the land I am giving them." This was a painful moment for Moses. After years of leading the people through trials and dangers, his own disobedience had cost him the privilege of entering the promised land. He would see it from a distance, but another leader would take the people in. The place where this happened was called Meribah, which means quarreling, because the Israelites argued with God there, and because Moses failed to follow God's command. It was a reminder that even great leaders must obey God completely, and that disobedience always has a price. Chapter 20. The Bronze Snake. As the Israelites traveled through the desert, they once again became impatient and began to complain. They said to Moses, "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? There is no bread, there is no water, and we hate this miserable food." They were speaking against both Moses and God. Because of their sin and constant rebellion, the Lord sent venomous snakes among the people. The snakes bit many Israelites, and a large number of them died. The people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned when we spoke against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord to take the snakes away from us." Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord answered. He said to Moses, "Make a snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live." So Moses made a bronze snake and set it up on a high pole. When anyone was bitten by a snake, they could look at the bronze snake and be healed instantly. This was not magic. The healing came from God. The bronze snake was a sign of his mercy and forgiveness. It reminded the people that even in their sin, God had provided a way for them to live. Many years later, Jesus would use this event as an example, saying that just as the snake was lifted up in the desert, he too would be lifted up so that everyone who believes in him would have eternal life. Chapter 21. Balaam and the Talking Donkey. As the Israelites continued their journey toward the Promised Land, they camped near the land of Moab. Balak, the king of Moab, saw how many Israelites there were, and became afraid. He thought, "If they come against us, they will destroy everything." So he decided to call for a man named Balaam, who was known for giving blessings and curses. Balak sent messengers to Balaam with money, asking him to come and curse the people of Israel. But God spoke to Balaam and said, "Do not go with them. Do not curse these people, for they are blessed." Balak sent more officials, promising Balaam great rewards. Balaam said, "Even if Balak gave me his palace filled with silver and gold, I could not do anything against the command of the Lord my God." Yet the next morning, Balaam saddled his donkey and went with the Moabite officials. But God was angry because Balaam's heart was not fully obedient. As Balaam traveled, the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam could not see the angel, but his donkey could. The donkey turned off the road, crushed Balaam's foot against a wall, and finally lay down under him. Angry, Balaam beat the donkey. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it spoke. "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam argued with the donkey, and then the Lord opened his eyes. He saw the angel of the Lord with a drawn sword. The angel said, "I would have killed you, but spared the donkey. Your way is reckless before me." Balaam bowed down and said, "I have sinned. I will go back if you want me to." But God told him to continue, only to speak the words God would give him. When Balaam finally saw the Israelites, God put his words in Balaam's mouth. Instead of cursing Israel, Balaam blessed them again and again. He even spoke a prophecy. "A star will come out of Jacob, a scepter will rise out of Israel." This was a glimpse of the Messiah, fulfilled in Jesus Christ, the true King who would come to save his people. Chapter 22. Balaam tries to curse Israel, but can't. Balak, the king of Moab, took Balaam to a high place overlooking the Israelite camp. He built 7 altars and offered sacrifices, hoping Balaam would curse the people. When Balaam opened his mouth, he spoke the words God gave him. "How can I curse those whom God has not cursed? How can I condemn those whom the Lord has not condemned? From the rocky peaks I see them, a people who live apart, and do not consider themselves one of the nations." Balak was frustrated. He said, "Come with me to another place. Maybe from there you can curse them." Again, altars were built and sacrifices offered. This time, the Lord met with Balaam and put his word in Balaam's mouth. And once more, Balaam blessed Israel. God is not a man that he should lie, nor a human being that he should change his mind. What he has promised he will do. The Lord their God is with them. The shout of a king is among them. Balak became angry. He said, "If you cannot curse them, at least stop blessing them." But Balaam answered, "Did I not tell you? I can only say what the Lord puts in my mouth." A 3rd time, Balaam spoke, and his blessing became a prophecy. "How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. Blessed is everyone who blesses you, and cursed is everyone who curses you." Balak realized he could not change God's will. Israel was under the protection of the Almighty, and no magic, no curse, and no enemy could destroy them. This moment proved that God's promises cannot be broken. Even today, those who belong to Him through Jesus Christ are safe in His hands. No curse can take away His blessing. Chapter 23. Moses prepares the people to enter the land. After many years in the desert, the Israelites came close to the land God had promised their ancestors. They camped in the plains of Moab, near the Jordan River, across from the city of Jericho. God told Moses that the time had come for the people to be ready. A new generation had grown up. Most of the adults who had left Egypt were gone, except for Joshua and Caleb. Now, Moses needed to remind them of everything God had done, and of the laws they were to follow in the new land. Moses gathered all the people and spoke to them. He told the story of how God had rescued them from Egypt, how He had cared for them in the desert, and how He had given them His commandments. He warned them, "When you enter the land, do not forget the Lord your God. Do not follow the gods of the nations around you. If you obey the Lord, you will be blessed with peace, food, and safety. But if you turn away from Him, you will face trouble and loss." Moses also gave instructions about worship, justice, and leadership. He reminded them of the importance of loving God with all their heart, soul, and strength. He said, "These words must be in your heart. Teach them to your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up." As the people listened, they knew the moment was near. Soon, they would cross the Jordan River and enter the land of Canaan. But Moses also knew that his time as their leader was coming to an end. God had chosen another man, Joshua, to lead them into the Promised Land. Before that day came, Moses would give them one final message, filled with blessings, warnings, and hope. Chapter 24. Moses sees the Promised Land and dies on Mount Nebo. The journey of Moses was almost complete. He had led the people of Israel for 40 years through the Red Sea, across the desert, and to the very edge of the Promised Land. But because of his disobedience at the waters of Meribah, God had told him that he would not enter the land himself. One day, God said to Moses, "Go up to Mount Nebo, in the land of Moab. From the top, you will see the land I am giving to the Israelites, but you will not cross over into it." Moses climbed the mountain and looked out. From there, he could see the whole land, from Gilead in the north to the land of Judah in the south, from the Mediterranean Sea to the valley of Jericho. It was beautiful, just as God had promised. God said, "This is the land I promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when I said, 'I will give it to your descendants.' I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not enter it." Then on that mountain, Moses died, as the Lord had said. God himself buried him in Moab, and to this day, no one knows the exact place of his grave. Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, and his strength had not left him. The people of Israel mourned for him 30 days, weeping in the plains of Moab. After Moses, Joshua son of Nun took the lead. He was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him. The people listened to Joshua, just as they had followed Moses. There has never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. Through Moses, God showed his power with mighty signs and wonders, and his life continues to inspire faith today. For those who believe in Jesus Christ, Moses' story points to a greater deliverer, the one who frees not from Egypt, but from sin and death, and who leads his people into the eternal Promised Land. What part of Moses' story touched you the most? Was it his courage before Pharaoh, the crossing of the Red Sea, or the moment he saw the Promised Land from Mount Nebo? Tell us in the comments. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. This helps us bring more inspiring stories from the Bible to you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.